Hello everyone, welcome here to Musician's Edition for another piano video. This video is going to be a song tutorial focusing on reading intervals, since that's what I've been covering in my recent videos. And since it is coming up on spooky season here in late September, we're going to be doing the Addams Family. So it's going to be a pretty simple, just one-handed version of the Addams Family, because we can just focus on intervals like that. Makes it nice and accessible for you guys to be able to pick up quickly. So we'll look at sight reading, reading some intervals, see if we can get through this nice and quick. So as a reminder on intervals, let's go ahead and look at some visuals here. So this song is going to have everything up to a sixth. In my videos, I've only gone up to a fifth so far. That sixth just comes up a couple times, so we'll manage that when we get there. But for those fifths, those are going to be the more common ones we're going to see in here. And everything below, of course. So let's go ahead and review that with this here. So if we have C as our starting point, it's called a unison or a first interval for me to just play C twice. It's called the second interval if I go from C to D. So that's up one note there. Third interval, C to E. Moving around, it could be E to G, it could be F to A, and so on. There's always just one note in between, so I'm counting up 1, 2 for that third interval. Fourth interval is like C to F. Or looking elsewhere, if I start at E, that would be E to A. Okay, so there's always two notes stuck in between. We can count up 1, 2, 3 notes for that fourth. Last one is that fifth interval, so this is like C to G. Or moving around, it could be F to C as well too. This one is, so the numbers of the interval versus how many notes you're going up doesn't exactly match, and so that part can be a bit confusing. But what I used to remember that is if I put my thumb on C and then each finger gets its own note from there, that first interval is playing C to C, and if you know the numbers that go along with your fingers, thumb is 1, index is 2, middle is 3, ring is 4, and then that pinky is the fifth finger. So that first interval is just playing the one finger twice. Second interval is going from 1 to 2 finger. Third interval is going from 1 to 3 finger. Fourth, 1 to 4 finger. Fifth, 1 to 5 finger. So that's the full pinky to thumb right there, that fifth interval of C to G. And I did say we're going to come across a couple sixths. So when we get there, that's going to be like C to A, stretching that pinky out a little bit farther. Or the other one we're going to see is B to G. All right, let's go ahead and look at the sheet for this one. So on the sheet, we're going to read them like this. So that first interval or unison, just the same note in a row, of course. Second interval, we're going to see C to D. And so that's always just going up one on there from a line to a space or from a space to a line. That third interval, there's always something in between it. So it's always a line to a line or a space to a space. All these odds are going to be like that. Fourth interval is line to space, that one higher than the third. So again, that was C to F. That last one is the fifth interval from C to G. And again, those odds are always going to be line to line or space to space. That's how they work out. And so that's how we can read those a bit quicker. And again, I mentioned there's going to be a sixth. So that would be line to space, going one up higher than that fifth. That's enough review. Let's go ahead and look at this song and see what we got in store for us here. So we're going to go ahead and start with that recognizable intro to this Addams Family theme. So let's go ahead and just look at the sheet, break a couple of things down. Key signature, time signature. For key signature, we can see there's one sharp there. That's going to be F sharp. So there's going to be some Fs in here for sure. As we read them, we're going to play them as a sharp. Time signature you can see is 4/4 here. So simple enough for us, basic time signature. One other thing to point out before we start reading this is as you see here, there's a lot of triplets. And so that's what that thing that starts it off here, that 3 under 3 consecutive notes, that is a triplet. So what that tells us is we're going to fit 3 notes into the length of one beat. So where you would typically play 2/8 notes, you're squeezing in 3 that are evenly spaced apart. And so you can tell it fits under one beat because at the very beginning we have that lead in here, and you can see it's a quarter rest above it, and then what we're fitting in is those 3 notes. Look at that first full measure, you can see the first note takes the first beat, we have 2 rests on the 2 and the 3, and so right on the 4 is where we start that triplet. So we're going to fit in those 3 notes within that one beat, all evenly spaced apart, and then leading us into that next note, because every time we play that triplet, there's always that one note on the first beat that we're going to go into. So if you know the Addams Family song, this will come to you really quickly because it's really familiar. So let's go ahead and dive into this and see if that trips us up at all. So we're focusing on intervals. So all I want you to name is the first note in each of these sequences. And then we're going to go ahead and just use intervals to figure out the rest. So knowing that first note here, we got to pay attention to that. That's on the bass clef on the third line. That's G, B, D. Okay, so D right there. And take a look at these next three notes. Use those intervals, count on up without paying attention to what those names are. If you just put your pinky or your ring finger on D, where does it take you? So from there, it's just up one, that puts us on F, which is going to be F sharp, following that key signature, and up one more. We end up on G. So these are all second intervals, just going up one at a time. And again, just keep in mind, F is F sharp, following that key signature. So altogether, this first part, D, E, F, G. We didn't need to know those note names, we just needed to know D, and just up one at a time for the rest of them. Okay, after that we're going to pause for those 2/4 rests. That's kind of where they do the snaps in the song. Okay, and so that's going to be the one main part we do for this intro. The other part is just one other thing in here that we're just going to repeat. So looking after those 2 rests in this first full measure, that second triplet we see, that first note we just need to name here. And so that is going to be the third space, which is A, C, E. So we're just going to shift up to E here. And again, we're reading up one at a time. So E, second interval up 1, again, that's F sharp. We have an accidental sharp here, going up 1 higher, that would be G, it's G sharp. Up 1 more for that second interval there at the end, puts us on A. So we went from E, just up 1 note at a time. Keep in mind there's 2 sharps in the middle here. So E, F sharp, G sharp, A. And these are the only 2 sequences we need to know for this intro that we just repeat over and over. So let's go ahead and play those back to back. Okay, and that's it. We're going to repeat that second one a couple more times. Let's look at this second full measure that we have in here. And so we can see it's just those 2 rests again, and then we're repeating the same part we already did. So that's E, F sharp, G sharp, A again. Okay, so far. And if you know how this song goes, you know we're not going to have as big of a gap here. Where we used to have those 2/4 rests, we're filling it in with another run through this same pattern again. So we're going to repeat it back to back. Just like that. It's the same notes though. Same notes again as before. And then after that, you can see we're on the third full measure here at the end and the last triplet in there. We're going to slide on back down to the D with that same sequence we did at the very beginning, which was D, E, F sharp, and finishing on G. So that's our main sequence here. We're going to repeat this whole thing one more time again, but let's go ahead and practice this from the beginning. We're on that sequence starting from D first, then we go up to E, do that again, quicker, back down to D. Okay, so all together, full speed, that would be like this. Okay, that's that. Go ahead and practice that if you need some time with it. I'm going to keep on going. This second part of it, we just repeat that whole thing again. So if you go ahead and look at that next measure from there, it's just repeating that D, E, F sharp, G, and then again sliding up, doing that again, quicker, and back down to D, E, F sharp, G. So all we're doing is repeating this whole thing twice. So let's go ahead and play this all the way through if you guys are ready for me. I'm going to go ahead and nice and pretty slow here. Let's count it out. Okay? 1, 2, here we go. Second run through. And we're done. That's the intro. Okay, so go ahead and practice that some more if you need to. It's pretty fun to play around with because it is really easy, but it sounds really cool too. So that was practice playing triplets. And all of these were just second intervals, so that's a nice way to get us going into this before we go into some of the harder ones that's going to come through in the chorus of this. All right, but let's go ahead and move to the chorus. So this part is going to have a section that we're just going to repeat twice, kind of like what we just did in that intro, so it's not going to be terribly hard. But interval-wise, we're going to have much harder stuff than just seconds. So let's go ahead and look at that. So again, remember our key signature, we are still just playing with those F sharps, so look out for those because we are going to come across them. Also some accidentals, that's going to make those Fs into naturals. All right, so starting from the beginning, that first note we do have to name again, that's going to be D. And so this is the D that's going to be just above middle C. So for me, that's right here. Okay, and from there, let's look at some of these harder intervals. So that first one, do you think you can name it? D up to something else. So we're mixing space to a line, so that lets me know that it's even, it's not a non-interval, and that's too big to be a second, so that's going to be a fourth interval. So if I put my thumb on D, and I want to go to my fourth finger, which is going to be up to G. So fourth interval is D to G. Okay, so I'm counting up 1, 2, 3 notes there. Okay, next one up is a third interval, that's just a line to line. Okay, so I'm going to go up 2 more notes from that G, play that B here, and then it looks like we're just going back down, that third interval back down to G, another third interval down, that puts me on E, another third interval down, that puts me to C. Okay, now this is our biggest jump here. This is our sixth coming up next. This is a line to a space, and we know it's going to be an even one. And it's too big to be a fourth, so I know it's going to be a sixth. So this is me stretching out past my pinky one note, right there, and then ends up putting me on A. Okay, so let's go ahead and just practice this little sequence here. So I started off on D, I went up a fourth, went up a third, down a third, down a third, down a third, up that sixth, finishing on A. Okay, so more connected, here it is. There we go. And as far as the spacing in your fingers, because you are stretching a little bit here, so what I'm doing is thumb, middle, pinky, middle, and you don't want your thumb to play this E because then you're gonna have to jump over for the C afterwards. So I'm using my index finger for this E here, that thumb's ready to play C, and I can jump up to that A with either my pinky or the ring finger. So try to get that motions down, obviously get whatever's comfortable for you, but you do want to avoid thumb on E and jumping over because that's going to make it harder for you to hit that A up top. Okay, so all together, here's how I play it. I like using my ring finger instead of the pinky, but do whatever works for you there. So going ahead and looking at the end of that measure we just left off on, we can see that natural symbol. That is going to be F natural. Okay, so it's correcting the only sharp that we had in here, which was F sharp, so that's going to be F natural where we start. And after that, this is a unison actually, the first one that we're getting, so that first interval, but it's not F to F. Since there's a bar line in between, that means we correct it back to the key signature, which means we're going from F natural to F sharp. And then we're going up a third, so skip that G, go up one more. That's going to be A, back down a third, down a third, down a third. So we should be on B now. And now this is going to be our sixth again. So it's line to space, so it's too big to be a fourth, so I know it's going to be a sixth here. So if we put our whole hand on here, it's going to be one past that pinky, which is going to be up to G. Okay, so let's stop there and practice what we just did. We started on F, at unison, but it's up to F sharp, up a third, down a third, down a third, down a third, up a sixth. We finish on G. Okay, so all together, let's connect that a bit more. Okay, there it is. And again, on this one, you don't want to get stuck twisting your hand. So what that means is we have to play it like this. And you want index finger on D here instead of your thumb, because if you do thumb, you got to jump over and then kind of adjust for that G, and that's a little bit awkward. So what I'm doing is this. So index on D, thumb plays B, up to G, I use my ring, but you can play your pinky as well too, whatever's comfortable for you. And so that means we've done these first two little parts here, and these parts are going to come back again as kind of the main things that we're going to do here. So let's go ahead and play those again from the beginning. So we started off on D. Okay, and here we go. It was up a fourth, up a third, down a third, down a third, down a third, up that sixth to A. Then we restart again at F, play that F sharp, up a third, down a third, down a third, down a third, up a sixth, we finish on G. Okay, let's go ahead and do that one more time without me talking in between here. We're starting off on D, here we go. That's what we got. Starting to sound like the tune, huh? All right, so if we go ahead and look at that next note that finishes off that measure we were just on there, that's going to be D again. If we look ahead to this pattern, it's the same thing we did at the beginning of this chorus, so we're just repeating that again. So that part just one more time. Okay, so let's go ahead and look beyond that and do this next part, and after this measure here, it's going to be the part that just connects and we repeat here. So let's go ahead and work our way up to this one. So we're now at the end of that line there. We got one more note that's going to connect to this next little measure here. So that note is a G. Okay, and let's go ahead and look at that next measure. So I will name this note because they're a bit further away from each other, so it's going to be easier for me to name this and then do intervals after that. So I'm going down from G to F. Remember, this is F sharp. There's no natural symbol. I'm going to go down a third. I'm going to go up a second, and up a second, and I finish on G. So one more time, starting from F sharp for this measure, down a third, which is down two notes. We're skipping over that line there. Up a second, second, we finish on G. So if we use that first little note that we had to lead us into here, that was a G. So we're playing G down to F sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. A bit more connected, here's what that sounds like. The Addams Family. There it is. All right, so now we have done everything to this chorus. We're just gonna have this part repeat one more time at the end of this, but let's make sure we got this part down here so we can do that. So we started from the beginning, starting from D. We went up that fourth, and it was all thirds from there, finishing with that sixth, so here we go. And then we started on F, going up to F sharp. One more time through that first part, starting on D. And now this new part we just did was G, F sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. Okay, and again, this just repeats again going throughout this next part. So you can see the rest of the notes on here. It's just that same part repeating again. So we play this twice in the chorus, and then if you know how the song actually goes, after this finishes, we just go back to that intro part again, and we just kind of repeat that over and over, going back and forth between these sections. But we'll stop at the end of this chorus. So let's make sure you got this whole thing down. We're gonna go ahead and play this chorus, connect it all together. Let's do 2 runs through it. If we need to practice any parts of this, go ahead and do it now. I'm gonna go pretty slow through this though. 1, 2, here we go. And one more time, let's go ahead. That's it. So if you need more practice, go ahead and do it. I hope this was a nice piece to be able to look at, intervals differently, not naming all these notes. This is what I do to get, through pieces quickly using sight reading. If it's new to you, it might seem like a lot, but I promise it's easier than counting up with that second line. Okay, that's G, third line up, that one's A, and naming each individual note. Once you do get the hang of these intervals, I really encourage you to practice it because it's so much quicker to get through these pieces. Because all you have to do is name that first note in that sequence, and then the rest of them you just use intervals to figure out by looking at your fingers, or once you get better with it, you can kind of feel it out without looking at the piano, and it's much easier than naming all these notes. Especially when you have multiple notes playing left and right hand together, it's the quickest way to get through this. So I hope that makes sense for you guys. We can go ahead and wrap it up. Let's go ahead and play it one time all the way through from the beginning. Let's combine these intro and the chorus together here. All right, so what we're gonna do is just go one run through this thing. Just to make sure you got it all down, let's start from that intro, make sure you guys remember that. Let's go ahead and do this. That was starting from D with that one here. Okay, I'll count us into this thing. 1, 2, here we go. One more time. And chorus, here we go. That's it, we're gonna do it one more time, let's go. And that's it. You can keep going, repeat that intro part again, because they go back to back. But that's gonna be it for us here today. So I hope this was really beneficial for you guys. This is a great song for you to have for spooky season in your bag. If you're done with this one, you can always look for more complex ones that has the left hand playing along with the right hand. I just wanted to focus on intervals and a bit of sight reading with this one. So I do encourage you to challenge yourself, look up those songs that you want to learn, find those sheets, and try to apply the same theory onto those. You guys can read up to fifths. We even did sixth in this one as well too, and those are really good ones to start off with, so you don't have to name every single note in the piece that you're doing. All right, have fun playing, and we'll see you next time.